This is one of the shots I really like that you took. So I'm just going to do a quick edit and show you kind of my thought process and workflow. Like I told you, I kind of cheat with these. I like to start off with what Lightroom thinks looks good, so I always hit that auto button and then let them decide what the photo should look like first, and then use that as a starting point rather than the raw. What I first noticed is, like, I really like to bring out the detail of the car. So what I would do is go into light, probably bring that exposure up a little bit, and use, with the dark car, you'll notice that if the lighting isn't perfect, a lot of the details get hidden, like in the front air dam. So Lightroom Auto already cranked up the shadow. I'm going to crank it up a little bit more just to brighten that area up. What you could do that's a little bit more advanced is use that selective edit and then highlight that area. Ooh. And then probably want to be more exact than that, but I'm just going to do this as kind of an example. And then just crank up that area. You don't want to go too far because then it kind of makes it look artificial. So just give it a little bit more of a boost. Probably give it some black back. Bang. So already that's, it's popping a little bit more than when Lightroom first did its auto. Okay. Next, what I like to play with is just kind of the overall look of the background in the car, the whole picture as a whole. Kind of just play around with most of these toggles and see what I like. Usually with the white car, I'm used to editing my photos with just the CTR, and I like to crank up the contrast a little bit just to make it pop more, but it kind of destroys the photo with the black car, I think. Yeah, so I'm just going to leave that probably not too high. Another thing I like to do is hit this little curve button right here. I can't really show you by pointing because it's just a screen recording, but it's right above the exposure. So if you click that, this is basically like the lighting curve, and you can see how you can brighten it, you can dim it, but it gives you more precise control over like the shadows and stuff. Obviously you don't want it to go too crazy because you can destroy the photo very easily. I usually go to kind of the edges down on the bottom left and the top right. This controls the highlights and the shadows, kind of like what we were playing with the dial, but a little bit more intense. So my eyes are looking at the car right now to make sure that our subject, you see how when I did this, like it kind of grayed everything out. Let's brighten it up a bit. Okay. So the car looks good, in my opinion. Okay, so now let's do a little bit more with the rest of the photo. Looks like when we brightened everything up, we kind of lost some of the color. So I want to just bring some of that back with a little bit more vibrance. Not too much with the saturation, because that saturation kind of makes things look artificial. So what I like to do is just play with the vibrance a bit, brighten it up. Okay. And then lastly, this is more of a personal preference kind of style, is I like to use that selective edit with the gradient. Let me actually go back so I can show you. So I went to the selective edit on the far left, hit that plus button on the top left, and then the gradient. So it gives you three options, right? You can free draw a selective edit, which is the far left. The middle option is a circled kind of, I use that for creating artificial sunlight or highlighting wheels. And then the far right one is the gradient. Selecting that now gives you this, I don't know if you've used this, but it gives you a very easy gradient tool. And what I like to do is add a bit of a fade to just kind of frame our subject here. So I'm just going to crank down the exposure, bring up the dehaze a little bit more clarity, and then duplicate. Okay, it's a very subtle touch. You don't want to go too crazy. I'm going to gradient again for the top. And this time I kind of wanted to bring out that sky a little bit more. So I'll put down the exposure a little bit. I really like this dehaze tool. What it does is, what its purpose is if you have a photo taken in fog, it kind of cuts through that fog, makes the subjects or whatever object in the background that's covered in fog pop a little bit more. But what you can use it to is if you have a sky that's cloudy or hazy, the dehaze sometimes can bring it out. So like clouds hidden in the background can come out. It's not such a great tool. This shot isn't a great example to use it on because it kind of destroys the sky, but it brings the blue out usually a little bit more. So we're just going to help that out a little bit. Make sure it's not cutting into the tree line. So this is very lazy. You would probably, like if professionals would probably actually manually go in there and use the select edit and then manually draw kind of what they want. But I'm not going to spend that kind of time on this. This is just for Instagram. Okay, so usually what I do is I go to the 5.4 because that's optimal for Instagram. And if you frame it like this, it really makes the car appear big on when you're scrolling by it on your feed. Usually I'll go for the vertical look, but since this is a roller, just to give the photo more of a, to let you see more of the motion, I'm going to put it portrait. So here you go. This is my edit of, oh wait, no. Justin would hate to see me do this too much, but I really like cranking up the clarity a little bit just to make things look sharper. So texture is a new tool that they have. They broke this out from clarity. What it does is you can see how it adds a little bit more structure and detail to the photo, but if you crank it too much up, it makes it really look artificial. But a little bit of touch to accent it isn't a bad thing, in my opinion. Another thing I like to do is once I'm done with everything, I'd like to zoom in and then look at the photo. Actually, let me download the full photo so we could get the full effect here. Okay, so this is a full photo now in the full quality, and you can see once I zoom in that there's a little bit of grain, of some noise. So what I'm going to do is help it out a little bit, go down to detail, go to noise reduction. Now you want to be careful with this tool. If you crank this up too much, it removes a lot of the detail, right? You see how that like all that grain is gone, but so is some of the detail, and it kind of looks like a painting now. I'm gonna just help it out enough that the grain is less noticeable. What I'm doing here is just making a small adjustment and letting Lightroom catch up. Okay, so there's still grain, but once we zoom out to the full photo, it looks kind of perfect. Okay, so that is the finished product. Hopefully that helped. If not, I'm sorry for wasting your time. Toodaloo.